If you're anything like me, you like to try different methods of training to see what works and what doesn't work. I've had a very long, successful time using the Maffetone method, and I thought that that was the end-all and be-all for a very, very long time. However, it was until I learned these few things that totally changed my mind. One of the challenges when you use heart rate training is, I've mentioned when I was on my run today, that you've got different heart rate monitors, different brands, and each one comes with pros and cons to how it works and the quality of what they've used to build the product. And with the individual itself, like if you have a tattoo on your arm, this may not work very well on your wrist. You may have to use a strap or use one that goes on your arm. So there's different issues that come with different models. When you get older, it is harder to train using the Maffetone method or using heart rate training, because as we get older, the connective tissues in our muscles really starts to tighten up. And so you need to have more blood flow to go to those particular places to help move your body as you run. Look, I am no coach, I am no physiologist or anything like that. What I am is, I'm a runner, I'm an older runner. I have experience using heart rate training in my running, in my training. And that's one of the challenges I've found is over the last number of years, your heart rate does creep up a little bit. Like, it doesn't happen like overnight, and each year you may really not see a big difference. But as the time goes by, once you get out of your 40s, then you get into your 50s and your 60s, and even in your 70s and 80s, things really do change, and you have to pay attention to that. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to use heart rate as a way of trying to track your training. Fatigue. Fatigue is a big thing with running. If I am feeling tired, if I'm feeling exhausted after a long day at work, or if I don't get a restful sleep, I'm already kind of feeling fatigued when I wake up, just know you will see a difference in your heart rate. And this changes from day to day. So it's something to think about if you're going out for a run and you're trying to use heart rate to monitor what you're doing, it may be off. Heat. The temperature outside will be your governor. It will basically tell you how fast you are going to run if you are using a heart rate to monitor your running. And what I mean by that is the hotter it is, it's going to be harder for your body to regulate its temperature. And by doing so, it will actually has to increase the blood flow to your muscles, right? And as it does that, it starts to pump faster and faster and faster and faster. And by doing so, higher, higher, higher. So it's really difficult to run fast in the hot temperature. Wintertime, again, can be really hard using heart rate because the colder it gets, your body's doing its best to keep itself warm. So again, it's the same kind of cycle. Humidity. Humidity is a huge factor because as you get hotter and hotter and you start to sweat, your body is beating sweat on the skin. And when it's very humid outside, it is so difficult to cause the whole evaporation to happen. And so I found when I'm running in hot climates or very humid climates, my heart rate gets elevated. And so you have to look at the type of training you're doing and maybe shift from not using heart rate, but shift to using more of a perceived effort. And what I mean by that is not every run can be run using heart rate. And trying to compare one run from another run that you did just like 2 days ago, because the temperature could be so different. And specifically if you're in climates where it's always changing all the time. Like the ideal temperature I find for my heart rate to be like right in the zone that I can pretty much run the fastest I can at a certain pace, at a certain heart rate, is between 4 and 10 degrees. That is a sweet spot that I find in my running that allows me to use heart rate very, very effectively. Cardiac drift is something that I've actually spoken about on my channel before. Using heart rate training when you're going out to do a long run, it's okay. Like if that's the goal and if that's what you want to achieve, fantastic. But just know, after about an hour and a bit, maybe an hour and a half, specifically after 2 hours, you're gonna have what's known as cardiac drift. And that means that your heart rate will start to drift higher and higher and higher. And that is because you're getting more dehydrated. If you're getting dehydrated, one of the things that your body's trying to do is go, well, where am I gonna get the water from? Well, it kind of comes from your blood. So your blood is pumping, and so by doing so, you got less blood volume, and it has to pump harder and harder and harder. And by doing so, your heart rate starts to rise. So cardiac drift is a real thing, and it's happened to me a lot of times, and I'm sure it's happened to you. So if you are going out for a run, what you can use is use heart rate for the first hour or so, figure out what your pace is gonna be. And then after about the hour or an hour and a half or even 2 hours, right, continue to run at that pace. Now, by doing so, yeah, your heart rate's gonna go higher, right? So obviously your type of training will differ. If you're going out and you just wanna do aerobic base, then okay, maybe stick with that. But I mean, if you wanna go out and you wanna run, or if you want to race, then you definitely don't want to use heart rate as something to monitor while you're running a race, because you're racing. So maybe just use it to set the pace, and then after, just continue to use that. Something to think about anyways. The numbers on your watch may be lying to you. All you coffee lovers, you're in luck. You got 45 minutes to get your run in from the time I talked about this in one of my previous videos, and that is stress. Stress plays a major factor in my heart rate anyways. And I know if I am under huge pressure at work, or I've got financial commitments, or I'm dealing with family matters, or whatever it is, I can get very stressed. And I know, because my watch tells me kind of where my heart rate is. When you're just dealing with things on a daily basis, I can tell my heart rate, specifically the last couple of weeks, my heart rate's being high. If you're trying to train using that, it's gonna be something that's gonna really frustrate you. So you may wanna shift over to more of a perceived effort and try to turn off the noise in your head anyways. Stop tracking based just on heart rate, because there's so many other factors that are going on a daily basis. If you're running huge mileage, again, that's a stress on the body, just like all those other factors I talked about. So be very aware of what's going on in your life. And when you're running, don't get down on yourself. Maybe do some meditation, maybe just do some walking for a while. Whatever it is, you got to find something to kind of reduce the stress level, because if not, heart rate training may not really be that helpful for you. If you're training using heart rate and you like having a cup of coffee, just know your heart rate's going to be higher. Now, the thing that you need to understand about this is there's also products out on the market that actually have caffeine in them. Like Tailwind, for example. It's something that I enjoy having if I'm out for a long run. Some come caffeinated, some not. You can get some gels that actually has the same thing. But what happens is with the caffeine, that stimulant really kind of kicks in after about 45 minutes. And when it does, your heart rate is kind of rising. If I'm actually going to have any sort of stimulant, when, like, again, I talk stimulants, I'm talking caffeine. If I'm actually gonna take it, then you may wanna have it like a cup of coffee, kind of 45 minutes before you go out and run, because at that point there, it's probably gonna be kicking in just kind of when you need it to. But if you're on a run, like if you're training using these caffeine stimulants, you got to make sure that you place them in certain places of your run, so that way they can actually help you. At some point, there's kind of a crash to it, and when there's a crash to it, you kind of need to make sure that you're taking another one to kind of keep it going. That's just my personal opinion, because that's what's happened to me. You may be very different, because you may be a different body size. You may be more accustomed to having caffeine in your diet. Everyone is very, very different. I'm just speaking from my personal, experience using it. Knock on wood, but I don't really get sick very often. But when I do, my heart rate rises. I mean, if I'm coming down with a full-on cold or something like that, I know that my body is trying to look after me. It's trying to heal me. It's trying to get me better. So it's actually a stress on the body. It's also trying to, deal with the inflammation that's going on in my body. If you're sick, if you've got the flu, don't run. Running through illness may not be a good thing. And I know we all want to make sure that we get out and we do our run and we're doing our training. But man, if you're feeling awful, take a break. Your body's basically telling you it needs time to heal itself, to get better. If you're running, that's another added stress that it has to deal with. And sometimes it takes even longer to heal. You may actually get sicker, or you may get a point where it stays longer than really what it needs to. Race excitement, that's something that happens to me. You get those butterflies, you get this release of endorphins. You're at the start line, you're so excited, and then boom, off you go. And you're running fast and you've got all these things going on in your body. And don't monitor your heart rate while you are running a race. Run the race. You've trained for this. So you kind of know what pace you're going to be running at. And just know, looking at your heart rate isn't going to help you, because you're so flippin' excited that you're probably going to be running faster than you should anyways. Maybe you got to use it to kind of dial back a little bit off of the start line. But just know that, yeah, you don't want to be using heart rate when you are running a race. Run your race based on effort and feel, and enjoy that race. One word of caution if you are using perceived effort instead of heart rate. Don't be the kid in the candy store with your parents being away. Meaning, don't go crazy. Run by feel. Run by honest feel. Do you think that you could continue to run like this for an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is? Because if not, you're running too fast. Maybe sing the national anthem. Maybe sing your favorite song while you're running. Tempo time. I don't like running fast. I'm so used to running slow. All right, 160 beats a minute. Let's see how this goes. On the track now. Hopefully I can get my pace under control now that we're on the track. And when I talk, my heart rate goes up. Final stretch. This was, I don't know, it felt good. I have no idea how I'm doing though. Just trying to keep my heart rate steady. We'll see what it looks like at the end of this run, and I'll compare it to my other two. So I'll be 3 tempo runs in the last 3 weeks. Oh, fingers crossed that it turns out pretty good. It didn't go so good. If I wasn't using perceived effort, I would use the Caffeine method. Click here to watch that video, because in it, I think it'll help you have a different mindset when it comes to using heart rate, because we're all different and we're all doing our best with the information that we have. So like I always say, get out and run. See you next week. Bye, everybody.